Let's think about the language we use to describe angry women. We call them shrews, bitches, hags, nags. If refusing to stay quiet about things that matter makes someone call me a bitch, well, then maybe the problem isn't me.
You're listening to Speak Mother, a podcast about reclaiming your voice, your identity, and your truth inside modern motherhood. I'm your host, Shannon Warner. Let's get into it. Hello, friends. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm so glad you're here. We're continuing our exploration of On Our Best Behavior, The 7 Deadly Sins, and the Price Women Pay to Be Good by Elise Loehnen. And as I've mentioned before, you absolutely do not need to have read the book or the specific chapter to be part of this conversation. We're simply using the book as a jumping off point to examine our own experiences and conditioning. So today we are talking about anger. And I have to say, I am really excited about this episode because I think this topic is incredibly important, especially right now. A lot of us are angry. God, I'm angry. And we absolutely have every right to be. A lot of us may also be expressing a new level of anger for the first time in our lives. Welcome, welcome. Anger is welcome here. That can feel a little scary though, can't it? We've been taught that good women, good mothers, good girls, we don't get angry. We don't yell. We don't lose our temper. And we definitely don't express rage. But here's what I want us to consider today. What if our anger is actually information? What if it's pointing us towards something important? What if suppressing it is actually making us sick? Literally, physically sick. Let me start with something a little personal. I am a 1 on the Enneagram, and if you know anything about the Enneagram, you know that type 1s have a little bit of a problem with resentment. So we see the world as not being what it should be. We see injustice, we see inefficiency, we see the things that are wrong, and we can feel this kind of low-level, constant anger about it. For most of my life, I could not understand why no one else was following the damn rules. I was a rule follower, and I watched people around me doing whatever they wanted without consequences while I stayed in line, did what I was supposed to do, followed all the guidelines, and that made me angry. Why wasn't everyone else playing by the same rules? Why did it seem like I was the only one who cared about doing things the right way? But what if that anger is actually pointing me toward my values? What if it's telling me what matters to me? Fairness, justice, integrity, and what I think needs to change. But even recognizing this about myself, I still feel the pull to suppress it because that's what we've been taught as women. Here's the thing about anger that Elise explores in this chapter. Anger has historically been a force for expanding rights. Righteous indignation changes the world. It's the spine of social change, the force of progress. But women, we've been taught to suppress it, to turn it inward, to direct it at ourselves and each other instead of at the systems and situations that are actually causing the problem. Let's think about the language we use to describe angry women. We call them shrews, witches, bitches, hags, nags, man-haters, and I'm sure you've thought of a few others. And you know what? 10, 15, 20 years ago, any of those words would have devastated me. The fear of being labeled with any of those terms, either in my personal life or in the workplace, or even just out in public, would have kept me quiet, would have kept me small, would have kept me compliant. But now I think, bring it on. If standing up for what I believe in, if naming injustice, if refusing to stay quiet about things that matter makes someone call me a bitch, well, then maybe the problem isn't me. And here's something that really struck me.
Elise points out that our language doesn't have one unflattering term to describe men who vent their anger at women. Not one. Even words like bastard don't actually condemn the man. They blame a woman. Same with son of a bitch. Meanwhile, loud women are called unstable, dangerous, dramatic, delusional, insane. So while angry women are deemed unhinged, it continues to be culturally appropriate for men to express aggression all over the place. Men's anger gets taken seriously. It gets results. It gets respected, even when it's completely out of proportion. But women's anger, that's seen as unfeminine, unmaternal, sexually unattractive. The direct expression of anger, especially at men, makes us unladylike. Ooh, I hate that term. This conditioning runs so deep. We've been taught that we are nurturers, limited to the domain of caring. Good girls don't fight. Good girls don't yell. We've been trained to make other people comfortable above all else. But here's what happens when we suppress our anger. We turn it inward. We become resentful. We develop what researcher Gabor Mate calls super autonomous self-sufficiency, the unwillingness to ask anything of anyone else. And there's actually research showing a correlation between this kind of niceness, this avoidance of conflict and suppression of anger, and serious health issues. Cancer, ALS, autoimmune diseases, chronic illness. Our bodies are keeping score. When we don't express our anger outwardly, it doesn't just disappear. It shows up as illness, as depression, as anxiety, as that constant low-level resentment that makes us snap at our kids over small things because we can't express the big things that are actually bothering us. Marshall Rosenberg, who developed nonviolent communication, said that anger stems from our overlooked needs. Let's think about that for just a second. Your anger isn't irrational. Your anger isn't too much. Your anger is information about needs that aren't being met. Maybe you're angry because you need more support in your household and you keep hinting instead of asking directly. Maybe you're angry because you need to be heard in your relationship and you feel like you're constantly talking to a wall. Maybe you're angry because you need justice or fairness or change in your community or your workplace or your world. But we're terrified to express these needs directly because we're afraid of losing our relationships. We think if I push, if I assert myself, will I still belong? Will someone stick with us if we prioritize our own needs and desires? The fear of relationship loss keeps us small. It keeps us quiet. It keeps us turning that anger inward instead of using it as the powerful force for change that it actually is. And then there's the way we teach girls to handle anger. We don't give them access to open conflict. We praise girls for being nice, for being good, for being accommodating. But what happens to their anger? This totally normal emotional response, anger. It goes underground, and it can manifest as social aggression, gossip, alliance building, the silent treatment, exclusion. It's ugly. We teach boys that physical and verbal aggression are options, even if we don't actually like them. But girls, we teach them the least confrontational forms of aggression. And then we wonder why women can be so cruel to each other. As mothers, we have this incredible opportunity to model something different, to show our children that anger is a completely normal human emotion, that it doesn't make you a bad person, and that it can be expressed in healthy ways, that it can be a source for positive change. But first, we have to reclaim our own relationship with anger. That's hard work. We've been conditioned to believe that our worth is tied to how accommodating we are or how little trouble we cause, how nice we can be, even when we're being mistreated. In all this caretaking of everyone else, we backburner our own needs. We hope that maybe someone will notice our selflessness and reciprocate by taking care of us. Guilty. But that's not how it works. And it's impossible not to feel resentful when we're constantly giving, constantly giving, constantly giving, and never receiving. So, what might it look like to reclaim our anger? What would it look like to see it as information rather than a character defect? Maybe it starts with getting curious about what's underneath that anger. What need is not being met? Or what boundary is being crossed? What value is being violated? Maybe it's about learning to express our needs directly instead of hoping someone will guess. Maybe it's about setting boundaries even when it makes people uncomfortable. Maybe it's about using our anger as fuel for positive change instead of turning it against ourselves. Rosenberg reminds us we cannot express ourselves and listen to others until we become conscious of what we need. I am angry because I am needing blank. Think about that. Instead of just sitting in anger, instead of just letting resentment eat us alive, what if we could identify the need underneath? What if we could say, I am angry because I am needing to be heard. I am angry because I am needing justice. I am angry because I am needing a change. Right now, so many of us are drowning in our anger and our resentment, futilely waiting for someone, anyone, to do this work on our behalf. Sister, they're not coming to save you. We're waiting for someone else to anticipate what we want and eagerly address it so we don't have to say anything at all. Those of us in relationships with men, they're not going to figure it out. They're not mind readers, nor have they been conditioned to anticipate our needs in the way that we've been conditioned to anticipate theirs. And it's okay to be mad about it. It's okay to name the feeling, the need under that anger. But then you've got to express it. There's this line from the chapter that really stuck with me. I let my anger rise to show me where I had betrayed myself. Listen to that again. I let my anger rise to show me where I had betrayed myself. What if your anger is just pointing you toward the places where you've abandoned yourself, where you've said yes when you meant no, where you've stayed quiet when you needed to speak, where you've made yourself smaller to make others more comfortable? Our anger can push us into disharmony and hate and cycles of blaming and shaming and judgment. Or our anger can provoke change and establish new ways of being in the world through grace and through peace. But we must understand when anger is running us rather than informing us. When it informs us, it becomes what Elise calls a drive shaft of compassion and care. When we mine it for lessons, when we metabolize it and transmute it, it becomes the energy that can change the world. And you know what? A lot of us are fucking mad right now for one reason or another. The question isn't whether we should be angry. The question is, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to turn it inward and make ourselves even more sick? Are we going to turn it on each other and perpetuate cycles of harm? Are we going to suppress it and pretend everything is fine? Or are we going to let it inform us? Are we going to use it as information about what needs to change in our families, in our communities, in our world? As mothers, we have this incredible opportunity to model a different relationship with anger for our children. to show them that anger doesn't make you a bad person, that it can be a force for positive change, and that it's okay to have big feelings about unfairness and about systems and things that don't work. We also have to show them that anger without action is just resentment. So that change requires us to move beyond just being mad to actually doing something about what's making us mad. And maybe that starts small. Maybe it's setting a boundary with a family member who consistently disrespects you. Maybe it's having a difficult conversation with your partner about the division of labor. Maybe it's speaking up in a meeting when someone takes credit for your work. Or maybe it's bigger. Maybe it's getting involved in your community. Maybe it's supporting organizations that align with your values. Maybe it's using your voice or your platform or your resources to create the change that you want to see. Elise writes that progress doesn't require being permanently pissed. And my friends, I think a lot of us are stalled out there. Action is more powerful when it comes from a place of love. And maybe that love is exactly the reason we're so mad in the first place. We're angry because we love our children and we want a better world for them. We're angry because we love justice and we see too much injustice. We're angry because we love ourselves and others, and we're tired of watching people get hurt by systems that could be better. So what if we let our anger show us where our love lies? What if we let it point us toward what matters most to us? What if we stop seeing it as something to suppress and start seeing it as fuel for the changes that we wish to create? And maybe it's about refusing to be nice at the expense of being true. Before we close, I want to leave you with some questions to sit with. As always, these are not homework, just invitations to get curious. What makes you angry right now? And what need might be underneath that anger? Where in your life have you betrayed yourself to keep the peace? And what would it look like to honor your anger instead of suppressing it? And what would change if you used your anger as information rather than evidence that you're a bad person? Just sit with those. Notice what comes up. That's enough. And here's something I would love to hear from you about. We're coming to the end of our exploration of the 7 deadly sins, and I'm curious what you would like to hear about on the podcast moving forward. What topics are you craving conversations around? What questions are you sitting with that you'd love to explore together? There's several ways that you can get in touch with me, and I will link all of those in the show notes. I would love to hear from you. I read every message and I would love to know what's on your mind and heart right now. So feel free to DM me or email me or hit that link in the show notes to let me know what's on your mind. And if you're building something with your voice or you've been circling the idea for a while, I offer podcast strategy sessions. It's 60 minutes where we sit down together and get clear on what you're actually building and what your next steps are. If that would feel supportive, the link to book is in the show notes. Thanks for being here for another important conversation. I love you, and I'll see you back here next week. Thanks for listening to Speak Mother. If this resonated, share it with a friend, and don't forget to follow the show so you never miss an episode. Keep speaking your truth. I'll meet you back here soon.